Okay, we just finished doing a training over here on the whiteboard all about spin selling. Now, spin selling is an old book that's from the 80s, and we're going to be talking about how to apply it today in your sales process. Now, this is something I've been training on for many, many years, not just spin selling, but really about asking the best questions in your sales process, getting inside the mind of your customer. And the only switch I'm going to make you think about today is not so much waiting to talk to your customers to ask these questions, but how do you spin sell them before you get in front of them? And so I've been training on this for many, many years. Thousands of people have taken some of these programs from me, from some of the questions guides, and this one specifically in the program that we just launched, so that we can help you build a better framework for asking questions. So let's jump in. If you're in sales, you need to know how to ask amazing questions. And what I'm going to be reviewing with you right now is spin selling. I've got the field books, I've got courses that I've built. All of my courses that talk about sales have some sort of element of how to ask questions. And I always refer back to this book, Spin Selling. Now, this book, when it came out in 1988, they reviewed about 88,000 sales calls and hundreds of companies and thousands of sales reps. And what they found was that by interviewing all of these salespeople and watching how they performed, they found that the highest performers did things dramatically different than the lower performers, even the second place finishers. And it was all about the questions that they asked. You see, back in the day, if you were just selling widgets, if you were doing highly transactional and low ticket items, the questions that you asked were a little bit different than as you started to go into complex selling. And they found that when they saw what these salespeople were doing, those ones outperformed usually 2 or 3 up to 10 times better than the ones that were in second place. Now I'm going to go through this, how this works and how you can apply it. Now, what I want you to think about before you do that, okay, I want you to stop and I want you to think about how we're going to apply it in today's selling environment, because it does you no good to go back and just ask a ton of questions to your clients. Your clients, your customers expect you to be more prepared now than ever before. And so what we want to do is say, okay, before we go out and just ask them a ton of questions, let's plan and spin sell those customers before we talk to them. Ask these questions of ourselves, of our customers, get in the mind of that customer so we can help them cognitively reframe how they think about themselves. If we get them to think differently about themselves, they will think differently about us. So let's show you what this looks like. So SPIN is really simple. It stands for situation, problem, implication, and need payoff. And I'm going to go through this with you. Basically, a situation question is, tell me about how you're doing this, or how many leads do you get, or when you do this, what happens there, so that you're trying to understand all of the ways that people make decisions and what's happening either in their business or in their life. A problem is, okay, so you told me about this thing that you're doing. How has that caused a problem? Are you seeing these problems happen because of that? Now, if you are an amateur or a new salesperson, most of the time, you're going to stop here because you're saying, okay, this is what's happening. This is the problem. Here's how we go and solve it. That's solved. So that's normally what people would do. So they say, here's your problem. Here's what we're going to do about it. Implication questions are basically you're trying to understand the cause and effect nature of their business. You're trying to say, okay, what if that happens? What else happens? Okay, who's involved? How does that work? Why would you make that decision? Then these things happen. So you're starting to see how things move in succession. Then the last one is a need payoff question, which is a lot more of a positive question, which is all about if you move forward with this, or if these things are in place, what's possible, okay? So when we look at these questions, here's what I want you to think about, is the implication questions are probably going to be your most important questions, and we are going to use an acronym here called BATCH, which stands for bottlenecks. What are the things that these problems are causing, and how are they holding back your business? Who are the other people that are affected because of what's happening, because of this problem? How much time does it take you to solve that problem? What are the costs that are involved to solve that problem? And how much of a pain in the butt is it to solve that problem? So if we start thinking about how to ask our customers these questions, we move them through this framework. We say, tell me about your business. How many leads are you getting? How do you currently advertise? What happens when these things happen? Okay, so are you seeing that when you're trying to get those leads, are you finding that a problem arises by trying to manage all those leads and trying to juggle those leads? Okay, well, how does that affect your productivity, right? Who else has to be a part of this? How does that affect those people that are involved? How much time does it take you? How much time does it take them? How much does that cost you to solve that? It's not just about fixing that problem, but there's time and there's costs involved. And how much is that driving you insane? We start to understand this. What we're trying to do here, let's use green as the next one, is if we go and do this, where am I going to put this? I like to... Let's use green. We're gonna put green in the background here. But then they say, well, that is too expensive. Let me think about it. Come back to me in 6 months. What we have is good enough. By asking the implication questions, we are starting to stack challenges. We're starting them to reframe their thinking. We're starting to do enough of a conversation where they start to go, wow, I wasn't thinking about that, about my business. That makes sense. And your offer now is completely valuable to the issues that they have. If we don't help them surface these challenges, then we run the risk of them not buying. Now, once we've done this, we've asked these questions, then we're gonna go and say, okay, let's say you have a better system in place in 6 months. What's possible for you? Now they explain to you, well, if we had that system in place, or if we had that offer, or we ran that event, or my finances were in a better position, whatever it is that you're offering, and we've helped them understand this, they say, well, if I had that in place, now we'd be able to do this. If we had a 15% increase of those good things, now we would be able to spend more on these other things. Or if we decrease the issues that we had by 50%, that would allow us to spend more time and energy on this. That need payoff question is to get them to go vocalize what an opportunity looks like working with you. Now, this is why the top performing salespeople use these questions in the wild to say, tell me about your business, tell me about your problems, tell me about what's happening because of that, who's involved, how does it work, what goes on. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So what you're telling me are these things are going on, and if you found a way to do this, is that right? Okay, great. So tell me, if we were able to put those things in place, what does that look like for you? That's a sales conversation. Now, what I want you to do for today's market is have this conversation with yourself, pretending you're the customer. Write these questions down. Write down what they might say when you ask these questions. This is so valuable as an exercise that as you start to build out your offer, your branding, when you start to map out your customer, if you ask these questions of your customer, you'll get better insight into how they think, the challenges they have, how they make decisions, and what's possible if they buy from you, so that when you get in front of them, they feel like you're inside their head. Okay, so that gives you a pretty good overview of how spin selling works. What I want you to do is take this worksheet, this one right here, and the challenge that I see people having with this worksheet is that you just can't put yourself in your customer's shoes. So if you have that problem, maybe grab your husband, your wife, your dog, somebody, get in front of them and try and put them as the customer and try and make this an activity that you guys do together. Sit in front of the mirror, talk to yourself. I do this all the time. In fact, I'm doing it right now. I'm just looking at this camera because I know you're over there. Do the same thing I'm doing at home to yourself in the camera. I don't know, but think about how you would ask these questions to a customer. And if you ask these questions to them, what might they say in these answers? Write down those answers. So write down, what would be a question I'd want to know about their situation? What kind of problems might they be having? If they're having those problems, what else is happening? And if we can solve those problems, what's possible? And that's what this is all about. So take this activity, run with it, fill this out, come up with your questions, and come up with the possible answers so you can prepare yourself to have better conversations and to build your contact strategy in a meaningful way. Go get it done. Hey, this is Joe Girard with Change Grow Achieve. Thanks for checking this out. Remember to subscribe and check out some of the other videos and resources we have. You know, as a sales coach, I spend a lot of my time just helping people be less weird and more human with their customers. If we can help you and your high-performing team, reach out to us, let us know, and let's connect soon.